food, baseball food, pizza, wings, and beer. You know, you can bring your kids in and, you know, they can play pool or play the video games, or they can sit with you and watch TV too, because you got the TVs in every dining room. It's such a place that you can come in with your family and sit down. And again, it's family oriented because it's family owned. When you walk in here, it's like a TV show, Cheers. Everybody knows your name. And you can expect that from in here because everybody knows everybody else.
It's the midweek edition of the Sideline Guys, sidelineguys.recordernews.com, brought to you by Crystal Ristorante, 72 Lion Street here in Amsterdam. Catch them online at www.crystalrist.com. Alongside Mark Robarge, I'm Adam Schinder, and we're just a couple of days away from the Final Four. As we speak, the first games of the Major League Baseball season are underway, but let's start with hoops. Saturday night in Houston, you've got the Cinderellas, and then you've got the Blue Bloods. You've got Butler and Virginia Commonwealth, and then Kentucky and UConn.
Well, like you said, you've got two very different games here. You've got probably two of the best traditional programs in the nation in UConn and Kentucky in the first game. Also, two of the best individual players tonight with Kentucky, and of course Kemba Walker with UConn. On the other side, you've got two teams that really, it seems, the coaches have become the stars as well, which makes for an interesting and a bit of a different story than you're usually used to at the Final Four.
Yeah, especially considering that the two coaches, Brad Stevens and Shaka Smart, are more like the older brothers of their players, whereas Jim Calhoun could be some of his players' great-grandfather.
Absolutely. In the Butler game, I think, in the end, I think it comes down to experience. You know, Butler was here last year, and I think that counts for a lot. VCU, I mean, from first four to Final Four is a great story, but in the end, I think Brad Stevens, and I think what little bit of experience, well, and they have a significant amount of experience that remains from last year's team as well. I think that's going to make a difference in the long run in that game.
I mean, I really, really love what Virginia Commonwealth has done, because they've kind of engineered the old school way of being an upstart team just by playing a ridiculously fast pace. Yep. They've got a very good point guard in Joey Rodriguez. They put a lot of pressure on you. They've been making shots, and they've been defending much better than they did in the regular season. But yeah, Butler, the way Matt Howard is playing, the way Shelvin Mack is playing, it's going to be hard to beat this team. I'll admit that ever since the middle of February, I've had a picture that I took of the court at Hinkle Fieldhouse in Butler as the wallpaper on my cell phone. So I guess, even though I'd love to see the upset, I've got to stick with my personal possessions and go with Butler in this game.
Well, is it really an upset either way, since both of these teams were such long shots to get here in the first place?
Yeah, I'd love to see the 11th seed get in there, though.
That's true. On the other side of things, like I said, I mean, I'm looking forward to just that showdown of the two of probably the hottest players of the second half of the season. In the end, though, you're looking at Connecticut, which has just been on an unbelievable roll since the end of the Big East season, right on through the tournament, 5 games in 5 days, and they've continued that streak. I think in the end that's going to carry them to the national championship game.
Yeah, I mean, UConn has just been playing so well recently. Kemba Walker is absolutely... There's not a guy in the country over this entire year, really, that you'd want the ball in his hands when you have to win a game. He's done it so many times. And the thing that's really helped UConn in this tournament is the development of Jeremy Lamb, the freshman, to give them a legitimate second scoring threat. I think what hurts UConn in this game is they're not as strong inside as that typical UConn team has been, with guys like Okafor and Villanueva, and going all the way back to Donyell Marshall.
Oh, don't forget Jake Voskuhl.
Because the way Kentucky's big men have played, Josh Harrelson is playing tremendous. Terrence Jones is playing very well. I think if Kentucky wins this game, that is going to be the key for them. And I've said all along, I don't think UConn's momentum can keep going over and over and over again.
But it keeps doing it.
I have been wrong long enough. I say UConn goes to the title game against Butler as well. But I'm going to go a little different. I think Butler somehow wins this national title.
You know what? I think it's possible they could do that. I'm not going to pick it because I'm not quite crazy enough to make that kind of a selection. But I would not be surprised either.
No, I
think Connecticut, with the quality of their coaching and just the overall, I think, a little bit of a significant gap in talent, I think that's going to be enough to carry.
I don't think either of us would be surprised if either Kentucky or Connecticut ends up as the national championship. I would say Butler's one advantage, if they do end up matching up with Connecticut, is that if you're going to pick one guy to defend Kemba Walker in the entire country, it might be Shelvin Mack.
And they've said that all through the season, and yet nobody has been able to stop him.
No one can stop Kemba Walker.
We'll see what happens. Let's switch gears now. Yes, I know we're on the verge of a huge snowstorm, but about 2.5 hours before we started taping, the Major League Baseball season officially kicked off down at Yankee Stadium. We gave you our selections team-wise on Monday. Wanted to come back quickly and give you our individual honors here as well. We'll start out in the American League with the American League MVP.
My American League MVP is one of the big free agent moves, not a free agent move, a trade from the offseason. I think Adrian Gonzalez is going to love playing in Fenway Park. This was a guy who put up around 40 home runs a year the last couple of years, playing in a cavern at Petco Park in San Diego. And those National League West parks, most of them are not exactly hitter-friendly either.
True.
Coming to Boston, a guy who's got a good opposite field stroke, playing off the green monster, and he's got a great, great ability to put the ball in that big power alley out in right center. I think you put him in the middle of that Red Sox lineup, he's got a big season ahead of him, and I like him as the MVP.
And as a Red Sox fan, I think it's a great acquisition to get him in the lineup. But I'll tell you the truth, my selection for AL MVP comes out of Tampa Bay. I think that this is the year that Evan Longoria takes the next step up. I mean, he was a phenom when he came up as a rookie midway through the 2008 season. The last 2 seasons, he's been a stalwart on that team, but he's yet to take that step to superstardom. I think he does that this year, especially when he's got a veteran presence like Manny Ramirez and Johnny Damon with him in the lineup to help nurture him along. I think I'm looking for a big season out of him. And Tampa Bay can be a big surprise, I think, as well.
Yeah, there's somebody's going to come out of the clouds and at least contend, whether it's Tampa Bay, whether it's maybe Toronto with a lot of their young pitching. Stay with the American League, Cy Young Award.
You can call it chalk, but I just don't think that there's a better pitcher in the American League, maybe in all of baseball, than CC Sabathia. I mean, this is a guy that harkens back to those old school days when the starters used to give you 300 innings, win 22 games, strike out 275, 280 batters. I think he's going to do that at the head of the Yankee rotation. I know there are questions in the 4 and 5 spot in that rotation, but that's the number 1 spot is one spot where there is no question at all.
Yeah, I'll also go with some chalk in that he won the Cy Young Award a year ago, but Felix Hernandez may have the best stuff of any pitcher in baseball, and he's got the advantage of playing out in Seattle, where it is also not easy to put the ball out there. Just a tremendous, tremendous pitcher who managed to win the Cy Young with 13, 14 wins a year ago.
Let's hope he gets some run support this year. That might help him a little bit.
Yeah, and the American League as a whole, the pitching depth is not as strong as the National League, but I think a lot of that is that the offensive talent in the American League with the designated hitter is much, much better.
Speaking of offensive talent, AL Rookie of the Year, I like Desmond Jennings down in Tampa Bay as well. He's been called to step in to basically take the place of Carl Crawford after Crawford left for Boston as a free agent. Jennings compared very much to Crawford as well, and I think he's going to break through and do a wonderful job. He, without a doubt, I think he's probably the top talent in the American League among the rookies.
Yeah, I mean, Jennings is a guy who can absolutely fly. I think he's a good choice stepping in to be really right at the top of that Tampa Bay lineup. Also keep an eye out for Tsuyoshi Nishioka out of Japan, middle infielder who's also got a lot of potential.
Absolutely. National League, start out with the MVPs. I'm going chalk here because you can't go wrong picking Albert Pujols, especially in a walk year. He's playing, even if he does re-sign with St. Louis, this is his walk year. He'll put up those big numbers as usual again, and they're going to count on him even more right now with the problems with their pitching staff.
Yeah, I'll go not necessarily off the map since he had maybe the best September of anyone in baseball last year, but Troy Tulowitzki out in Colorado really became an elite shortstop last year after some up and downs in his career, and I think in a kind of wide open there's Pujols and there's everybody else in the National League. If Pujols doesn't have the amazing year that people expect out of him, I think Tulowitzki's a guy who can come in and be the most valuable player.
Or if St. Louis is an independent race and Colorado is, that could make a difference as well. NL Cy Young, I know, chalk once again, but how can you pick against the best pitcher in baseball, Roy Halladay, especially leading probably the best rotation in the last 30 or 40 years?
Yeah, I mean, Halladay was very likely going to be the best pitcher in baseball again this year. The only problem I see is actually in voting. If any of his Philadelphia teammates have a season that compares to it, you're going to get a split vote. So I'll go with the guy who I think was really on his path to being a second or third place in the Cy Young race last year, is Florida's Josh Johnson.
Good young pitcher. And finally, NL Rookie of the Year, make it real quick. I'm going with Freddie Freeman from Atlanta. He's the next step. Jason Hayward was the big surprise last year. This guy is every bit as good as Hayward. He'll be taking the first base job in Atlanta.
Yeah, and I'll go with the guy who's going to be throwing 103, 104, 105 miles an hour out in Cincinnati, the lefty from Cuba, Aroldis Chapman.
And that'll do it. I hope you have a great weekend. Enjoy the opening of baseball season, the Final Four. I'm Mark. He's Adam. We'll be back on Monday. More SidelineGuys.recordernews.com, brought to you by Crystal Ristorante, 72 Lion Street, Amsterdam.